everyone. This is CRE Insight, where we shine light on exceptional people producing extraordinary results. And today I have the pleasure of having my friend Jeff Eggleston on. He is an appraiser. He's in valuation services. And Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for this opportunity to spotlight what I do. My name is Jeff Eggleston with Syn-Mar Associates, a real estate appraisal and consulting group. I do commercial real property appraisals for estate planning, like date of death, divorce, partnership dissolutions. Also do private party appraisals for a myriad of reasons. So really just anybody who wants to know the value of their commercial property. We consult at any level. I consult at any level. So just a phone call, whatever it would be, I'm happy to talk to whoever about commercial property. It's what I've been doing for 30 years.
Tell us about Syn-Mar. How long has it been around? And what does your team look like?
Great. Syn-Mar has been around for almost 30 years. We are a boutique firm. We have 5 appraisers and some support staff. And what we like about Syn-Mar is it is a team. We have a lot of guys out there that are all by themselves. And then we have big companies as well. So we're a boutique firm and we work off of each other. We help each other. We cover each other. And it's like a family. We all get along and just really enjoy working with each other.
For a typical new client, what can they expect of your onboarding process?
It's typically the initial contact, through a text or an email that they need some kind of appraisal. I will email them or call them back, figure out what is their needs. I will do some research and then get back to them with a fee quote and timing. And then we go from there, creating contracts and then just getting everything up and running.
In terms of product type, what are the different types of commercial real estate that you cover?
As far as product type, we do within the commercial realm, 5 units and up for the residential, and then anything commercial. Usually it's office, retail, industrial. We do some churches as well, religious facilities, and preschools is another one of our specialties as well. We don't go into the bigger Class A type offices, so we're kind of like the mid-market, bread and butter kind of appraisals. Low to mid-rise, 5 stories, maybe 20, 30, 40 tenants, Class B kind of stuff. Yes.
Okay. With like surface level parking, all that stuff, like in residential neighborhoods. Okay.
Surface level, yeah.
Yeah. And then in terms of retail, you do shopping centers and strip centers?
Yeah, shopping centers, strip centers. We do neighborhood centers, somebody that might have like an LA Fitness in it, out pads, fast food drive-throughs on the out pads, maybe a Lowe's in there. So, but that's about as big as it gets. We don't go regional, we don't go power centers or anything like that.
Great. Yeah. And then in terms of industrial, do you handle that as well?
Yes, we handle all levels of industrial from the smallest ones, storage yards. We're working on a 200,000 square foot building now in Orange County. So yeah, anything industrial we take care of. That's really probably the bulk of our business and what we really enjoy doing, because we know a lot of the brokers in that space.
If you look back on, your choices made to choose this career path, what were kind of some of the signals or the signposts on the road that you knew this was going to be a great fit?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I was going down the accounting road and in college, and I realized it was just too black and white for my personality. And appraising is an art and a science. So there's math, there's number crunching, there's details, but at some point you have to step back and use a little creativity because every property is different. Yeah, so that's what fits me best, is that I get to use my creativity. I'm not in a box on any one appraisal. I have some room to navigate and come up with my own opinion, as opposed to accounting. I think It's one number or not.
I think with appraisers, it's like maintaining that objectivity, when you do an appraisal that's fair. And I'm sure both sides have like, different agendas or goals that they want to achieve. How do you maintain that objectivity?
Well, there is there is a range to work within.
Okay.
There isn't just one number. So when you're talking about like if you're going against somebody else in opposing sides and hey, I want a high number, I want a low number, there is a high number, there is a low number,
Yeah.
right? And so I can choose within that range as long as it's supported and that I can defend it, right? And so, if somebody in my business says, no, it's just one number, I have a problem with that personally as an
Right.
appraiser.
And in terms of your company, what are the differentiators or what is your unique market value proposition?
Well, we like to tell people that when you hire us, it's like one less thing you have to worry about. I don't really know what everybody's experience is with appraisers, but I know that people don't communicate. You can't get a hold of them. And so you're always worried what's going on, anything happening. We like to keep people in the loop, communicate as we go along. If we run into problems, just kind of keep everybody informed. So
Right.
our value proposition is just, if you hire us, you have less to worry about.
Okay.
And we take care of you. Yeah.
And then a lot of your information on the market, you're getting it from different sources, but a lot of times you do have to reach out to brokers. How do you maintain those relationships?
We're in the market so much that it's really just about, picking up the phone. But, also we sponsor the CCIM group, the Southern California branch. And we're developing relationships with those brokers in there. So we're networking with brokers, and I'm also part of other networking groups. And so constantly talking about commercial property and not just from brokers, but all market participants at every level within the commercial world, to generate new ideas and just figure out what's really going on in the market.
When
You
you
know,
speak of other networking groups, what other groups are you part of?
I'm part of a group called Provisors,
Oh,
and
okay. I've heard of
yeah,
them.
you've heard, yeah. So we have our home group, but we have breakout affinity groups. So I'm going to probably 5 meetings a month.
Oh, wow.
And then those 5 meetings generate smaller, what they call troikas, where 3 people will meet for coffee or lunch or whatever, and
Yeah,
just get to know each other on a deeper
right.
level. And so that's like 10 meetings right there each month where we're talking commercial real estate. We're just, getting to know each other and seeing what everybody else is experiencing. Yeah.
I think that's the power of effective networking rather than just shoving a business card into somebody's hand. Really getting to know that person and finding some common ground. I think like that's how you capture and connect.
Yeah, I agree. You got to learn about their families, what they do for what they really do for
Yeah,
for their business, because we think we know what people do, but when
right.
you start to talk to them, it's different than what you normally think, right? You want to know what their dreams are and aspirations are as well, and what they like to do for recreation, because that's where you start finding commonality. And I
Yeah.
can tell you there's a lot of people playing pickleball out there nowadays. It's amazing. Everywhere I
So,
turn. But yeah, getting to know what people like to do in their spare time is a big thing, as well when you're networking.
what are your spare time activities or hobbies?
My wife and I like to be very active. We go biking quite a bit. I live in Long Beach, so we'll jump on the bikes, go down to the beach and ride down to the aquarium and, go out for dinner or lunch. We do like to go out to dinner, which a lot of people like to do, but I like to try new restaurants. I mean, I really enjoy whenever I'm in a new city or a new place to just poke my head into spaces.
Yeah,
It's a weird kind of thing, but it's like, hey, can we just take a look and see what the TIs look like
right,
in this
right,
place, right? I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, these people do some beautiful things behind the
right.
doors. And so even if I don't eat there, I love to see what they've done with their spaces. So that's kind of, and we're just very active in everything that we do as far as taking the dog out for a walk and meeting with friends, things like that. Yeah.
Well, I love the curiosity aspect of that because one thing I enjoy is going and hanging out in hotel lobbies and lounges
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just enjoying the architecture, the space planning, the lighting, the art.
I don't think people realize that's public space,
Yeah.
right? And it's just to walk in and hang out. It's some of it's, those hotels are really nice for that kind of stuff. Wherever you
And,
go, I think, yeah, just sitting in the bar area at a hotel, that's nice too.
there are times in between appointments and I'm not quite ready to go to my client's office. I'll like stop by at a hotel, bring out my laptop and just enjoy the space. And just like that 15-30 minutes there is just it's like a boost to my creativity. In terms of case studies, is there any specific or unique case studies you'd like to share with the audience?
Recently, we did an appraisal for tax appeal.
Hmm.
And so client came to us, property tax appeal, and through the process, we discovered that the property was overassessed by probably $2 million. It's a retail property in Costa Mesa, and we looked at it, and it turns out that the owner purchased the property like 2 or 3 years prior, but they overpaid for it,
Oh,
and they
okay.
wanted to overpay for it because they wanted the cannabis
Mm,
aspect. Guess what? If they would have had and they bought it cash. And if they would have bought it, if they would have had an appraised, they would have never gotten that kind of value. So through the process, we were able to demonstrate and prove that that shouldn't have sold at that price, but that sale price is what the assessor grabs, right? Puts it
right.
on the assessor's rolls, and then you keep moving forward. And
Yeah.
so we were able to provide evidence as to why that should not have been that high. So, that was a very interesting case to see that happen. Another one was a partnership dissolution that we were working on. So the partners had gotten 3 appraisals, all from reputable appraisal firms.
Okay.
And then somebody wanted one more appraisal. I have no idea why. I'm like, wow, these people are spending money on
Yeah.
appraisals. So I come in and we do the appraisal, and I discover that all 3 of the other appraisals have the wrong building area, right? So this is an industrial building, price per square foot. That's what
Right.
we're basing it on. Well, I discover also that the reason that they have the wrong building area is because they were given plans with a building area on it, and they just took that as gospel.
Okay.
Those plans were for interior measurements. When I
Yeah.
go to a building, I always double check everything. I measured the building, and I didn't know this before I went out that they had the
Yeah.
wrong number, but I knew that something was off because of the assessor. Whatever we do, our process, we
Right.
double
Right.
check everything. And the result was, well, the value is lower, or no, it was higher. I'm sorry, it was higher because the building was bigger.
Yeah.
And so whoever was being bought out got a bigger share, because the other appraisals were wrong. So the partnership dissolution, again, we have a process we go through that helps us to ensure that things are taken care of properly in that case. And I think the maybe the final one is just, um, somebody just called me up for consultation. They were dealing with a tenant that they're going to renegotiate the lease. They
Yeah.
want to know how to deal with the possibility of the tenant doing improvements on the property in the future. And, so we talked about the amortization of, money spent in capital improvements and things like that. And so, that was just a, free call where it's just like, yeah, let me just kind of tell you how we would look at it and how you
Mm,
might look at it if you were going to negotiate this lease. And, maybe she'll come back and have something more, substantial done and
yeah.
official, but at least she kind of knows which way, to go with the appraisal, and something like, so it's more of a consultation than anything else on that, in that respect.
Can you talk about some of your retrospective appraisals for like date of death?
Yeah, so we do a lot of that. I mean, again, a lot of people in the generation before us are passing away. And so a lot of people are ending up with property, whether it be the children or the wife or the husband. And so they have to do a retrospective as of the date of death. Now, sometimes people are right on top of it. I mean, like within a month, they're calling and saying, I need an appraisal.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, we've got people who come back at us. Hey, I need something from like 5 years ago.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
I need to understand the value 5 years ago. We forgot to set the basis and forgot to set the value. And
Mhm.
then I had one the other day that was like, I need the value as of one date, like maybe 2017 or something. But then I
Mhm.
also need to know what the value would have been in like 1990.
Gosh.
And I told him, I said, I wasn't even appraising in 1990.
Yeah,
That's when I started in the business, right? But we were able through trends and things like that to give them a general idea. It's
yeah,
like, and when I look back on that, Jamie, at the pricing back then for an industrial building,
yeah,
I was just shocked at
yeah.
what they were selling for. So it was just like, wow, this is like land value today, is what the price for the whole building was back then,
Right, right.
back in 1990. So it's amazing to see the trends and everything else over the years.
And
Yeah.
then your typical clients.
They kind of come from all different directions.
Okay.
Generally, I'm getting, the property owners have been told by their attorneys or their estate planning, like, or their CPAs, you need an appraisal. And what they do is they go to their broker. If somebody owns a commercial property, they generally have contact with a commercial broker, like
Yes.
somebody that like is a CCIM or something like that. And so they will refer them to us is what they'll end up doing because the brokers are out there. They are constantly contacting these commercial property owners to
Right.
to have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of our stuff is coming from the brokers inadvertently, I think, by way of that. But we're getting a lot more from the attorneys and the CPAs as well. When I'm going through provisors, we have guys that are dealing with families that are not
Mhm.
getting along, right? And so they need appraisals,
Yeah.
to reset the value and make sure everybody is realistic. So it's quite a mixed bag, but yeah, the brokers are the people we like the best because we talk to them, they give us market information, and we have a sense of what's happening in the market. And they're generally nice people because they're brokers.
What are you noticing in the market or current trends? I mean, everyone knows office is in a downslide. Industrial is getting a little bit more sluggish these days. Vacancy is rising. Anything in particular that surprised you?
Yeah, we've been waiting for the market to take a downturn, like you said, obviously on the office. But we were thinking industrial would be taking that downturn as well, and multifamily, only because the interest rates doubled. All
Mhm.
right. And so you're thinking, what the heck is happening? Why aren't these things turning? And it turns out that some of it is these loans are being renewed. The banks are kicking the can down the road, and rather than have the loans have to become due and them getting new loans, they're just renewing them at the same rates, hoping that interest rates will come down within the next 12 to 18 months. And so that's keeping the prices up there. Also, in the market, the sellers who don't have to sell because they have these low interest rates and the property is cash flowing, it's like, why would they sell?
Right,
At a down in a down what would be a down market. And so there is this, buyers won't buy it, at the higher cap rates, and sellers won't sell it, at the higher cap rates. So we have an impasse. And so
yeah.
we're all just waiting. What are you seeing, Jamie? Yeah, I'm wondering what you're seeing out
Yeah,
there.
I feel like the sluggishness comes from people not being sure of what's coming down the line, like in the short term.
Yeah,
So they're holding steady and they basically want to see what's going to happen with the election and other factors. And so I feel like they're not ready to pull the trigger. So just like you said, kicking the can down the road, sometimes they're just extending their situation by 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And so you're not going to really get a decisive decision until some time passes.
right. And I just heard this last week from a co-star economist that all of the general indicators that would indicate a recession are indicating a recession. Anything that we would have seen in the past that would have said, hey, you're in a recession,
Yeah.
is showing that today, but we're
Right.
not there, right? Because consumers are still buying, but savings are going down, consumers are slowing down, so, and then the election is coming up. So uncertainty, just exactly like you said, uncertainty. We don't know, and they're not dropping rates. They just didn't drop the rate again recently,
Yeah.
so we're still in a waiting pattern. But the people who do have to move are who? The people that, you know, people who pass away, pass their properties on, people who want to sell, people who, just don't want to be in the market anymore. So there are people transacting, but it definitely isn't, like it should be for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a few things happening with people inheriting properties. I think there's a huge wave of like the baby boomers that are about to pass or want to relinquish that property to their heirs.
Hmm.
And sometimes the heirs have no interest in commercial real estate. They just want to cash out. So that would be, something that creates some level of urgency and motivation. But then I think there are people that like they're just not confident about the economy and what's going to happen. It's really their perception of the world and how they're going to do financially, which creates decisions. When a company is feeling good about their sales, their growth, that's when they're ready to make a move and outgrow their space and move into something new. But I feel like people are hanging tight and trying to save where they can and kind of maintain their current position.
Yeah, and that's like all of us, right? And even in our own personal lives, we're kind of pulling back a little bit, going, okay, well, I'm not exactly sure. It feels like we're doing okay. I mean, our business is doing fine, and uh, you know, I think we're going to come out of this okay. But we have to. I don't know, Jamie. In my whole career, I've always thought, is it going to be okay? And it has always been okay. I've always been
Yeah.
okay. In 30 years, I've always been okay, right? I've never had to worry about it. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, well, but what if,
Right.
And so you got to kind of balance that, in business, for sure. Yes.
Right now, there a lot of big corporations are downsizing, people are being let go. Um, so just a lot of different changes are happening, but just being part of the 2008 crash, things did turn out okay. There were still deals to be made, opportunities to be taken advantage of during hard times. I think it's a matter of pivoting, and
Yes.
finding where the opportunities are in those hard spaces. But it's always turned out to be okay because the real estate market is a cycle. It always comes back. And so even though people might be struggling or, the deal velocity is dried up or just not seeing the type of results that they're accustomed to, I think if we ride it out, things are going to get better. So I'm actually optimistic about 2025 and beyond.
I am completely optimistic about that as well. And again, like you're saying, with the baby boomers and that generation passing, and us doing mainly estate planning work, gifting, like you said, divorce, partnership dissolution. I don't know that I'll be able to handle all the work that'll be coming at us. And so then my problem becomes, how do I do that? How do I get people, hire people, and train people? We are training a guy now,
Yeah.
but I'm going to need more eventually. And so the question is, where do you find them, and how do you train them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to the CEO, I think, of Fusco Engineering, and it's a civil engineering firm, and they do a lot of different services. And one of their biggest challenges is staffing for kind of like the 7, 8 years of experience that a civil engineer should have. So not quite the mid-manager or the executive level, but the boots on the ground. And so there is a shortage there. And so I think that's hitting a lot of different industries where they need to grow, things have to happen, but the labor pool has shrunk, or, people are disinterested in pursuing a career in that area.
Yeah. And I'm just so curious, to see where they're all going to go. Um, just the college graduates, where are they going? How are
Yeah,
they earning a living?
right.
It's different than when you and I came through. But there's nothing wrong about what's happening. It's just going to be a different economy, and I'm kind of curious just to see how that works, and how they make a living.
You know what's interesting? I went to a Long Beach like networking meeting, and they had a panelist of different types of brokers. And one of the interesting trends in retail was like people are taking smaller footprints, but retail is on fire. People enjoy the brick and mortar. And so they're having, I guess, a struggle because of lack of inventory, or they're having to resize larger footprint space and create like smaller spaces for smaller tenants. And I know in the pharmaceutical realm, they're doing the same. Like instead of not pharmacy, like a 15,000 square foot pharmacy building, they're now, 2,300 is like the optimal size. So retail is kind of going through some metamorphosis, I see.
Yeah, and I heard about the same thing, that retail's on fire and they have a lack of supply because they can't even build it. They can't build the smaller retail centers anymore because it just doesn't pencil out with the
Yeah.
cost of construction and land and everything else. So it's yeah, so that seems to be a bright spot for the retail guys, who can build the bigger stuff and then repurpose some of these big box into smaller spaces as well.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of construction on hold because of the high cost of materials, the
Hmm.
ability to get it, and then also the construction cost, just the labor prices have skyrocketed. So there's a lot of people, projects on hold or things moving a little bit slower than what's normal. And so it's really interesting to see that retail is doing so well. And so between now and the end of the year, what is your focus? Like where do you think you need to be or anything you need to adjust based on the first 6 months?
For us, no, there's nothing that we need to adjust right now. Like I said, I am feeling a little optimistic. We're getting a lot of inquiries and a lot of work coming in for all the different realms that we had talked about, or the different kind of things that we do already. And
Yeah,
so I just see that continuing, along the way. I don't really. We're just going to keep bumping along. It's amazing how fast 6 months goes by, and
yeah.
I really don't see that there's anything more that I need to do right now, but just get my processes and my procedures nailed down, make sure everything's tight so that we are efficient and can be responsive to people, and that we're not ever dropping the ball, because that's the whole thing. Nobody wants to drop the ball and find out that you're delivering late, or you just somehow
Right.
something fell through the cracks and you're like, what?
In your space of appraisals, you need to stay really organized and work with a lot of different people, sources of information, as well as updating the client as well.
Yeah, yeah, we do. And as far as keeping organized, we put in a process many years ago where
Mhm.
we realized that the appraiser is like a surgeon, right? He comes in and washes up and does his work, right? He doesn't prep anything. He doesn't
Yeah,
clean anything. And so what we realize is there's a lot of the appraisal process that is administrative, that can be handled on an administrative level, calling on taxes, just information, zoning,
right.
on a property. As an appraiser, I don't necessarily have to dig for that. It's there. So if somebody else can dig for that, I can verify it and double check it. So our system is set up where our admin people, what we call, prep everything. And
Okay.
then when the appraiser comes in, they can focus their time and energy on the valuation, making the phone calls, finding the comps, verifying things, doing the analysis, not, killing their time. Because when you're in the appraisal process, if you have to do all that stuff, by the time you get to what you really need to do, you could be really tired and burnt
Yeah.
out.
The whole appraisal process, it's synthesizing a lot of information, getting clarity, and guiding yourself towards the truth.
Yeah, we're putting together a persuasive document, and there's so many hundreds and hundreds of details that we have to put together. And then when they come together, you've got to look at it to make sure it's consistent, that you're telling a consistent story,
Mhm.
from start to finish, that everything ties in together, which is why we always review everything 2 or 3 times.
Oh,
Because
great.
again, if, like, when I was back in college, if I wrote a paper, I could review it and then somebody else can look at it and find all kinds of errors. But I would
Right.
have never found those errors because
Yeah.
whatever I'm reading, my brain is telling me, hey, that's perfectly fine that way. Yeah, send it out, no problem, you know. And so we've learned as well, nobody turns in a perfect report. You got to review things, you got to double check things, and make sure that everything's tight. Absolutely.
In terms of commercial real estate in general, if you could give advice to people who want to enter commercial real estate, what would you say to them?
I would probably say that they should get involved with the real estate departments in their colleges if they're at college to begin
Yeah.
with, because every college has a real estate department, and the professors usually reach out to the brokerage community, and they bring people in, and you need to find out all the different avenues or jobs or things that you can do, because I don't know, Jamie, how many different things can you do in commercial real estate? I mean, seriously, what do you
It's
think?
like the ocean. It's like the ocean. The deeper you get into it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many ways the information is sliced, diced, and disseminated, and how it impacts decisions. So it's really like an iceberg, an ocean. It's just more deep than we realize. And it's there are opportunities for so many different personality types,
Hmm.
I a broker in particular has to wear so many hats. They have to be persuasive. They have to be a great communicator. They have to be organized. They have to have a sense of the market. They have to be responsive, to achieve their goals. But then they also have to report to different people. They have to get information from different people. So it's wearing a lot of different hats, and then it's analyzing all that information and synthesizing it to help your client make a decision. And then there are other roles where it's like, if you're going to be a property manager, asset manager, it's got different qualifications and different characteristics that will make you excel or help you flourish. So I just think like there's just so much opportunity for different personality types. Some people, they don't like that client interaction. They like the numbers, they like the analysis, and there's room for that.
And I agree. And again, like somebody, an organization like the CCIM,
Mhm.
to affiliate with them or get to know them and be part of their groups, you get exposure to so many different disciplines within the commercial. It's not just brokerage, just
Yeah,
like a doctor. It's like, I want to be a doctor. Yeah, well, what kind? And
right.
same thing in commercial. It's like there are so many different ways to go. And even in appraisal, I'm an appraiser. I do a certain thing. I can't tell you how many different avenues there are for
Yeah.
people with my skills at so many different levels, at high levels, mid levels, low, it just everything, but you don't know until you dig in. So there's a book called Strengths Finder, Tom Rath, Rath. So it's this book, and it actually has a portion where you can go online and take like a test. And so what it does is it says it's basically, look, you need to play to your strengths,
Mm,
not your weaknesses. And so many of us look at other people and go, I want to be like him. But yeah,
right.
is that your strength? You
Yeah.
need to understand yourself early on,
Yes.
you know, in order to determine your personality type. And like you said, not everybody's the face, the broker,
Mhm.
right? There's support. There's all different types. There's number crunching. Some
Yeah.
guys just sit behind a desk to do analysis for investors, for families, whatever else, they're looking for property. There's so many different ways to go. So, again, I would recommend to anybody starting out, you
Yeah.
know who you are, which is a big one, right? It's like,
That's first
that,
and foremost.
but who would have known that at age 20?
Right.
If somebody told me that, I wouldn't know what to do with that, know who I am. I think I know who I am. In fact, I
Right.
think I know everything. And it's like, no, I didn't. I knew nothing. It's like Game of Thrones. You know
Yeah.
nothing, Jon Snow. you know, and it's like, yeah, you don't. But you got to dig into yourself and your personality and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and play to them, not to your weaknesses. And that's kind of what I'd recommend to somebody trying to figure it all out, early on.
I remember when I was trying to figure out my college major, I agonized over the decision to pursue accounting and marketing and things like that. I thought it was like the end all. I wish someone had told me it doesn't matter what your college major is unless you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, a businessman, something like that, because you will change careers. Like if I look back and my 18-year-old self, if someone told me I was going to do commercial real estate, I'd be like, that's really far-fetched. Because back then I was really just like really simple and I didn't think I could handle what I'm handling now. And so it would be the furthest thing from my mind. But people change careers, and I would say people change careers maybe 5 or 6 times. So just that college major, don't get stuck in a rut thinking like that's like a forever decision. I think it's a launching pad, really.
When you look at their college degrees and where they came from, like
Yeah,
an English major, psychology major,
right.
none of them thought that they would end up as a real estate appraiser. Now I came from a, real estate finance background out of college, you know, and that kind of, worked well for me. But again, so many other people, it's like, again, if you have detail orientation, and you're okay sitting and, writing up reports, then, appraising is something that and a little more introverted, that's kind of appraising. We also get out, we get to go look around, look at buildings. I love looking at buildings. Like I said earlier when we started,
Yeah,
I'm curious. And so that's one thing that I always love is to run around. I get to see the rest of the city, all the cities, all the neighborhoods. I'm exploring California for the last
right.
30 years. So for me, my personality, it's been great, Yeah.
I have a funny story to share. I just got back from Savannah, Georgia. I went there to go study land, learn more about land. So I was asking my Uber driver, I was like, so where's your office district? Where's your shopping center? Your shopping district. She goes, we don't have one. So it's like, I'm the country bumpkin from SoCal. All they have is like low rise, like 1 to 2 floors. It's like a mix mosh of buildings from like hair salons, jewelry repair to banks. It's not really like a planned city per se. There is some industrial like along the freeway and stuff, but there's no tall office building. There are new developments coming up like for housing and things like that. But the tallest, most of the buildings is like flat, like two levels. So I was like, she just laughed at me. She's like, "Well, this is Savannah."
Yeah, that's another thing that's one of my little soapboxes. Like, we project our experience onto the world and
Yes.
think that's what it's going to be. And
Yeah,
it just never is. Like us living here in California and what we normally experience is like it's just not like that in so many other places. Now, is Savannah, is that where they have like all the different little squares when they built the city?
they do. And the squares are places where the slaves were auctioned and things like that. So there is like a cloud of sadness at some of these squares.
Okay.
But I have to say the beauty of Savannah is like the charming small town feel, the trees that touch each other, from both sides of the street and those squares. But yeah, so it was really interesting. It was eye-opening. I was like, okay, I need to not think the whole world is like Southern California. And
Yeah.
then it also hit me when it came to dining out. We're used to like big salads with a slice of protein on top. So in Savannah, it was like coleslaw and like deep fried food. So I was like, okay, let's do.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm reading that book. I think it's Midnight in the Garden of Good and
Oh,
Evil.
yeah. There was
Yeah,
a
and that
movie that.
yeah, but there's a book and it's like Savannah, right? It's all about
Yeah.
that and the culture and all the people and everything else. And so I want to go visit as well and just see, and enjoy the beauty that they have there that is different. So it's interesting that you would just come back from there.
Yeah, and I would say one thing about Savannah is the hospitality, the Southern charm. I went into a jewelry store with like 5 different pieces of jewelry. They were able to fix three. And I was like, how much? I was expecting like a $90 bill. She's like, oh, don't worry about it, honey. It's on
Oh,
us.
really? Nice.
Everybody was like really kind like that. So that Southern sweetness and Southern charm was just really amazing to me.
Yeah, if you get a chance to read the book, there's stuff about that Southern charm and then the
Mhm.
undercurrent that it goes along with that Southern charm. There's always an undercurrent in there as well.
Yeah,
So
very
they're multifaceted, I'm sure.
If you were to give advice to your younger self, what would that be?
Um, I think it would just be to, I wouldn't have any advice to my younger self. I screwed up a lot, you know, I really did. And
It's
I'm amazed at
fabulous.
where I'm at.
Yeah,
But, I think that I wouldn't change anything.
yeah,
I'm lucky to be alive, number one. And maybe my life would have been different, but I still enjoy what I do, and so it's just kind of live life and be yourself,
yeah,
and just really maybe I always did kind of take opportunities as they come. I look back and I'm like, why did I do that? You
yeah,
know, but I think just when an opportunity comes up to say yes to it, even if you are uncomfortable and don't know how you're going to do it, try
yeah,
it. You fail, not a big deal. But at
yeah.
least you got some exposure to it, and the next time maybe you'll do better at it. So I think just take the opportunities that are given to you, maybe, and
Well,
don't shy away from them.
I like what you said about failure and making mistakes. Like you allowed yourself to do that, but those led to where you are now. I think a lot of people they agonize over like, not choosing correctly or like maybe in
Yes.
retrospect wasn't the best decision. But I actually think that allows you to pivot and then find who you are and find your correct path, You failure and all the successful people we see and even inventions they came out of a pool of failures.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's like when you fall down, don't beat yourself up,
Yeah,
just get up, try again, keep going. It's just it's just not that important, in the grand scheme of things.
yeah.
When you fall down, you got to get up and keep moving. Otherwise you're just never going to get anywhere. And I think that's a lot of people just beat themselves up way too much. And yes, I beat myself up a little bit. It's like, all right, whatever, let's move on.
Right.
Let's not take it too bad, too seriously.
And I like what you said because, sometimes friends will come to me and they'll confide in me that such and such is happening. It's really bothering them. And I always ask them, in 10 years, is this going to even be, of importance to you? Do you even care? It seems so big now, but put some time and distance, and you're not going to feel the same way. And then they relax and they can like shuck it off. But I think that's the main thing. It's like, it really doesn't matter. You just move on, you're resilient, and you get back up. And I think it's getting back up and just showing up for the next day is where the power is.
I completely agree. Just showing up, and again, sometimes just showing up and not even knowing why you're showing up. It's like, I don't know why I'm here. Maybe there's
Yeah.
something going to happen, but now I'm going to show up and see what happens. you know. So that's a weird feeling to just kind of show up and not want to be there, but then things happen that turn out to be good.
Well,
Yeah.
I think also speaks to like a certain level of comfort that you have in uncomfortable situations. And I think that is a part of being successful. If everything's easy peasy and familiar, you really can't grow.
No, no, and you really can't. But again, you got to find a way to push through and rely on something to push you through. I don't know what that would be or how that works for some people. Again, personally, it's just, I look and I say, Lord, I don't know what's going to happen. Just give me strength.
Yeah. And
Help me walk in here.
definitely. And when I look back, and let's say I'm in a tough situation now, when I reflect back on some of the other challenging times, and I've always gotten through, God's led me through, I always think like he's faithful and he's going to lead me out of this trouble.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And it always comes down to, it is what it's going to be. And like you said, get up, keep moving.
right.
Something new's coming down the road. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How can people best get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me is to email or text me.
Okay.
When I'm busy and I get a phone call, I really, it's hard for me to sometimes pick up right away. But if you text me and I can say, hey, I'll give you a call in half an hour, I love doing that. You send me an email, I can respond and say, I'll get back to you. I can be responsive that way, as opposed to if you call me and you have to leave a message, sometimes doesn't result in a response very quickly, which I like to be responsive. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, text or email is the best way for me to respond quickly.
Okay, great. And we will have your full contact information at the end of this interview as well. So that's wonderful. Any last parting thoughts or words for the audience?
Yeah, get out there, network early, get together with some groups, associations, get involved with the associations, become part of their leadership. That's how you grow. That's how you get to know people. And, again, the CCIM groups, wherever you're at, they are a great group to be part of. Absolutely.
Jeff, thank you for being a sponsor with our SoCal CCIM chapter. Thank you for being a great resource to me personally and just being a wonderful support. I loved having you on as a guest, and I look forward to many more adventures down the road in commercial real estate with you.
Yes. Thank you, Jamie, for this opportunity to get out of my comfort zone. All
Okay, great.
right.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jeff Eggleston, for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and your experience. I hope everybody got a lot out of this interview, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.